Alright guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to get your own custom jetway into MSFS 2020. We're going to be using 3ds Max as well as the SDK. What I'm not going to be showing you today is how to model a jetway, how to texture a jetway, or how to get an object or a jetway that was modeled or textured in an external program like Blender or Sketchup into 3ds Max. We're going to assume that your jetway is already modeled and textured and separated into the relevant objects inside 3ds Max. So here I'm going to show you if you just turn on the external power in our Airbus and bring up the ground services menu and select jetway connection, it's going to automatically connect to the Airbus. Let me just preface this by saying that I am in no way an expert. I am in no way a 3ds Max expert. There may be a lot of better ways to do the things that I'm doing, and all of the information that I'm presenting here today has been obtained from FSDeveloper.com. I will put in links to some relevant resources so that you can do your own research and probably come up with better, faster ways to do what I'm doing here today. Right, so we're gonna start with the jetway.max that was provided in the SDK as a sample. Alright, it already has all the animations, all the reference points, all the animation, Babylon animation groups that we're going to need in order to create a working jetway. It's also going to provide us with a working hood animation that we're going to use and recycle in our jetway. We're not going to reinvent the wheel because this animation already works perfectly. We're going to scale it so that it fits properly with our jetway dimensions. And then we're going to export our jetway using Asobo's template. So here I'm going to go to File, Import, and Merge. I'm going to select our Jetway Max file, select all the elements, and import it directly into the Asobo Jetway sample. Right? Then I'm going to select and delete all the elements that we don't need. So I'm going to select the head, the pivot, the legs, all the bridges, all 5 bridges, as well as the base and the wheels, and I'm going to delete them. Alright? I'm just going to come on the side here and expand all. And what we're going to do now is we're going to change the reference points and the locations of the bones to match the dimensions of our jetway. So the most important reference point is the rotation base, and this goes at the pivot point of the entire jetway. So I'm just going to drag this down to the pivot point where our jetway rotates. Then I'm going to select the pivot point for the head of the jetway, and I'm going to move it down to match the reference point or the rotation point of our jetway head. You will notice that the Y dimension or the Y location for the pivot point is not exactly at 0 for the sample, the Asobo sample. So I'm just going to set that to 0 so that's directly in the center, and then drag it up to match the pivot point for our jetway head. Right, if I come back now and select bone 1, which is the reference point for the first bridge, right here, this matches the beginning point of the first bridge. Now you will notice that Asobo's sample has 1, 2, 3, 4 bones because they had 4 or 5 separate jetways. Alright, we're not going to be using bones 2 and 3 because we only need 2 jetways. So I'm going to skip straight ahead to bone 4 and bring it to the beginning point of our last jetway. For this is bridge B for me. So bridge A was the first jetway. and bridge B is our second jetway. So bone 4 will match our second jetway. Because I moved bone 4 and the pivot point is a child of bone 4, its location moved. So I now have to come and drag this backwards, make sure that it matches the center or the rotation point of the head. Right, now we can move on to the bone 7, which are the bones that connect or control the legs. Right, so we're gonna bring that to the middle of the static point of the legs. Right, make sure that's in the center of the legs. Right, so bone 7, 8, and 9 all control the legs. So we're going to drag bone 7 up a bit so that the end of that chain, which is bone 9, directly sits at ground level. Alright, that makes sure that the legs are always on ground level. So that little piece at the bottom, which is bone 9, or the end of that chain, must always sit at ground level. Right there it is right there. Right, then we're gonna select wheel control orient and wheel control rotate. They have the same reference point, the same location. We're gonna drag it to the middle of the rotation point of the wheels, of our wheels, our jetway wheels. Right, so now that we've corrected the reference points to the dimensions of our jetway, we're gonna check the parent-child relationships of our jetway. So the root 400 has to match the rotation base reference point. So I'm gonna drag this down here so that it's a child of rotation base. Bone 1 controls the first bridge, or bridge A in our case, so I'm going to drag bridge A so that it's a child of bone 1. I'm going to drag bridge B, which is our second bridge, so that it's a child of bone 2. Oh, sorry, bone 4, as we said, which is the last bone controlling the bridges. So leg extension becomes a child of bone 9, and wheel axis, which controls the direction the wheels face in, becomes a child of wheel control orient. And of course, wheels 1 and 2 are children of wheel control rotate. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our hood and all its bones and control points and scale them in a uniform manner to make sure that they match the dimensions of our jetway entrance. So I'm just going to come over here, make sure that we have a proper view for when we are scaling. Select everything from bone 5 down to the door. And I'm going to scale that in a uniform manner. It's important to scale in X, Y, and Z all at the same time, because if you scale only in one direction, your animations get wonky. We don't want that. Alright, and I'm just going to come over here and make sure that's centered. So I'm going to drag this a little bit to the right, scale it again until it matches the dimensions and the proper location of our jetway. Alright, so our jetway hood extends a bit out of our jetway entrance, and I don't want to compress it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the dimensions of our jetway entrance. Just bring this bottom edge, edit this face, just drag it out a bit so that it matches the dimensions of the hood. Then I'm going to drag the top edge so that it covers the top of the hood. There we go. Alright, so now we're gonna check our animations, confirm that they're all working correctly. So I'm just gonna take the timeline slider down at the bottom, slide it forward and make sure that our wheels, our orientation and our hoods are all animating correctly. Right, so that all looks good. Now I'm gonna check that our entire jetway has the proper parent-child relationships. So I'm gonna select the rotation base and rotate it and make sure that the entire jetway rotates. Right, select bone 4 to make sure that the jetway extends correctly. Select bone 5 to make sure that it rotates the head correct. Oops, looks like we have an error there. Only our hood is rotating. So that means our head is not a child of the proper bone. So I'm gonna have to come down here and find the head. Alright, let me just select this head. Right, it's a child of bone 7 or bridge B. It should be a child of bone 5. So when we select bone 5 and we rotate it, the head and the hood rotates. Right, that looks good now. Alright, confirm that our animations are still good. Okay. The last thing that we'll need to check is our Babylon animation group. So I'm just going to right click, go into Babylon animation groups, and then check each one of our animation groups. Since we use the Asobo sample, everything should be already set and you won't have to edit any of that. So now we're going to come to Babylon and export our jetway as a GLTF. Right, so we're going to export to TBSA Jetway /model and our textures going to TBSA Jetway /textures. All the settings should stay the same. So we're just going to click on export and hopefully we don't get any errors. And that's it for exporting from 3ds Max. Now we're going to go into the Asobo sample in the SDK and use this folder structure to set up our SimObject folder structure. So on the left here, we have the My Company Jetway sample, and on the right, we have our TBSA Jetway folder. Inside it, we have our model. And if I just open the model, you will see that we have our exported jetway from 3ds Max, opened in Model Converter X. And if we go up, we have our textures. Right. So we're going to go into the My Company Jetway sample, and we're going to copy the relevant files from model, sound, and SimCFG over. So we go into model. First, we're going to take the jetway.xml and the model.cfg. We're going to copy it and we're going to paste it over. And we're going to edit them to match our jetway. So inside the model.cfg, of course, the name is not going to be jetway.xml. We're going to change that to, for example, tvsa jetway.xml. I'm going to save and close that. And then we're going to change the name of our XML to match that, tbsa jetway.xml. Inside the tbsa jetway.xml, this controls all the animations for our jetway. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that the GUID referenced in the XML matches the GUID of the actual object. So we're going to copy this GUID from the object and paste it in the XML. Right, mine already matches. Right, the next thing, these two lines, the animation wheel rotation and the animation wheel orientation lines, they're commented out in the Asobo sample, we'll need to uncomment them. They are very necessary. Then we're going to come down to the behavior sections, and under the component, you will see some use template sections. We're going to copy this code for the Asobo Jetway wheel roll and wheel orientation, and we're going to paste them at the bottom of the last use template, right? If you don't include those, your jetway will not have rotating wheels or orienting wheels, okay? The last thing you may need to do is to change the min and max for values for the IK constraints to match the dimensions of your jetway. Mine were pretty much okay, but the necessary thing may be your wheel rotation radius. So mine was not 0.41, it was 0.35 meters tall. That's what the radius was, so we're gonna change that and save that. And that's it for the jetway.xml. The sound.ai folder, we can copy that and paste that directly across. Nothing in there needs to change. And the sim CFG, we can paste that over and edit its value to change from my company jetway to the name of your jetway. Mine is TBSA_jetway. Right, and that's it for the folder structure of our SimObject. Right, now we're going to build our SimObject. So I'm going to open a package, an rs command package, and I'm going to add to that package a new SimObject. I will explain why I'm using a separate package later on. So down at the bottom here, create a SimObject, give our SimObject a proper name, which was TVSA Jetway. Change the asset directory to package sources, SimObjects, landmarks, TVSA Jetway, and select this folder. And then the output directory should be SimObjects slash landmarks slash rs_tvsa jetway. And that is it for our SimObject. We can now save our project and rebuild it. Right, hopefully we get no errors. If your package has been successfully built, the last thing we need to do is to copy that package from the packages folder into the community folder. So I go into packages, copy our build package, and paste it into the community folder. Now I'm going to restart the sim, and I'll explain to you now why I use a separate package for my jetway. The reason for that is you will notice that sometimes when you're trying to use a jetway within the same package or the same scenery package that it's a part of, sometimes in cleaning and rebuilding your packages, the jetways don't show up when you're ready to select them as a SimObject. If you place it in a separate package, build that package and then put it in the community folder, when you restart your FlightSim, anytime you go into any scenery package and you try to select that SimObject, it will always show up. The added benefit is that if you're using the same object in multiple separate scenery packages, you don't have to update every scenery package that uses that same object. You can update the same object in the base or the common package like I'm doing, and that way when you update the package there, every scenery package that uses that same object will automatically get an updated object. My TBSA scenery already had a reference to that same object, so you'll see in here that it automatically appears. I'm going to show you how to add a jetway as a SimObject in a parking space from scratch. There are tutorials out there that already show you how to do that, but just for the sake of completeness, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to go to Open Project, select my scenery package, TBSA, open the scenery, load in editor, and you see I have a parking space here. I'm just going to remove the original jetway so that I can show you how to add it back. So let me just take out these groups that I don't need to make it easier to select the parking space that I want. Alright, we're going to come back down here to parking space 7, select the SimObject, and delete it. Right. So if I now go back and expand the airport and select the parking space, right, that was parking space 7. Right, you will see that the jetway is red because it's missing a SimObject jetway. So we're going to go to add SimObject, enter the name of our jetway, which was not RS, it was TBSA jetway. We're going to click add, and our jetway is now white because a SimObject was successfully added, and we can now reposition our jetway. And that's basically it for adding a SimObject, adding a jetway to your scenery as a SimObject. The last thing you would need to do is to rebuild your package and copy it to your community folder. And when you restart your sim, you would see that the jetway can now connect to your airplane, just like we saw in the intro. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this is helpful.